Hey, it's Jameson with 6x6 Studios. Today in the Nerd Cave, we're going to be tearing up my $500 graphics card with the Dremel tool, so stay tuned. So here's my Asus Turbo GTX 1080. As you can see, it's a blower style fan, and everything has got to get exhausted out this back part right here, which is barely ventilated. There's just that one little slit there. So that's what we're going to be modifying today with the Dremel tool. I know it's a little bit different because that DVI port there gets in the way, and there's not as much room to ventilate, but Asus kind of did a poor job of doing the design on this. So first things first, we just got to take this back plate off, which is really simple. It's just those 4 screws and 2 thumb screws, and we'll be able to get in there and cut all that out. So I always start with the screws and leave the thumb screws for last because they really hold it in place really well while you're working. So there's 2 down, we only got 2 more to go. It's pretty simple. They're not even really in there all that tight, so it's a real easy DIY project. With thumb screws, you're going to want to loosen them up with some pliers first, and then you can do them with just your fingers. Now, these screws are really deep, so it takes quite a few spins to get them out of there, but it makes it really sturdy, and that's actually what the DVI plug screws into if you're using a DVI plug. And as you can see, the DVI port will actually hold that back panel up while you're working, even without any of the screws. So here it is. As you can see, there's a lot of room that's not being utilized to actually ventilate out the back. The back port here was, or back panel was blocking a lot of that. So we're going to take a little bit closer view of this right now and kind of think about where we're going to take some area out of. So I've got it marked here with Sharpie, and we're going to tear into this with the Dremel tool. It doesn't have to be perfect, but here is the slow-mo footage of me tearing this thing up. That's it right there. I'm going to grind it down and of course smooth it down, but you see how much more area is opened up now. So putting it back together, we're going to do it basically the exact opposite way that we took it apart, and we're going to put on the thumb screws first and the other screws last. Now, as you can see with me lining it up there, how much more area is actually opened up to the outside and not blocked. So I'm really happy with it. Again, it's not the most beautiful solution, but it is going to function great. So here we go. We're just going to screw the thumb screws in, just thumb tight for now, get everything lined up properly. We'll do both of these and then all 4 screws, and we'll be set to plug this back in. Now, before I did this, I did clean everything up. I used rubbing alcohol and water to clean up this back panel to make sure to get rid of any of the particulate, the excess metal that you might have on there with the Dremel tool, which is real important. You don't want any of that metal to fall into the card there and it short anything out. So make sure you clean this up before you do this. As you can see, you don't even have to tighten them down all that tight. Again, that's how they come from the factory, so don't over tighten these screws. Just get them a little bit snug, and then use a pair of pliers to tighten down the thumb screws. Again, these don't have to be all that tight either, especially if you're not using that DVI plug. If you're using the DVI plug, you might tighten them a little bit more than I did here, but I'm not using a DVI port. So here it is. As you can see, it's much more open. We're going to put it in the back of the computer, and as you can see, it's much more open, blowing a lot more air. So I did some synthetic benchmarks. This is Furmark, and with the stock ventilation at 100% fan speed, I was at 67 degrees C, And with the stock fan curve, I was at 81C, and that was that fan was at 63% to get at the 81, which is way too high, of course, and that's why I decided to actually tear this thing apart. Now, if you compare them with what happens after I remove that metal from the back plate, we get drastically lower temperatures. 62C if the fan is at 100, which it's terrible at 100. It's way too loud. But at the stock fans curve, we're at 77C at only 57% fan speed, which is great. It actually keeps it really quiet, and big improvement. So overall, I'm happy with the results. It might not be the prettiest solution, but it really does a good job. You know, 3 or 4 degrees is a big difference, and the biggest difference is the fan speed. It's really kept that down, which has kept the noise down in this room, which I really appreciate. So if I had to do it again, I'd probably do it the exact same way. I kind of wish I could take out that DVI port and even make even more room back there. I'm sure it would improve the cooling quite a bit. But I hope you enjoyed me tearing up my $500 graphics card. So I'd love to hear what you guys think. Comment down below. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button, and hope to see you in the next one. Thanks.